Alright, so the first step is create a Maven project, war project, and add all the dependencies. I copied from the other project. Then I think this name should be changed to MVC demo app. Save it. Next, we also need what? We need the web.xml. So we add, now this is an error that's shown here. As you can see that there is a web.xml is missing and it's giving me a message, right? So how do I generate? I right click here, Java E tools, generate deployment descriptor stub, and that is done. Then it also requires probably a Maven update. That's what it's saying here. If you see the error message, it says project configuration is not up to date. Select Maven update project. So I right click, Maven update project. Only that project is good enough. Alright, that's gone, right? So the error is gone. So now I need a few other things from the previous project. I can copy few things. One of them is assets, which contains bootstrap. What else? Yeah, I think I'll copy that from the previous project. SRC main web app assets. I copy SRC main web app and paste here. And as you can see that the assets contain a CSS with the bootstrap min.css. There's a 404 and vinode.jpg. 404 of course can be used as it is. I also had the other webinf pages. I want this 404 JSP, so I can point that, okay, go to that, right? So I'm going to copy that, create a new folder. One other project I gave views. This project I want to give pages. You can also type JSP, right? It can be anything. You just need to know what you are given, that's all. Purposely I'll change this to JSP, okay? And paste that 404 JSP. That's okay. And it says that the JSP require the servlet API. It's not in the build path. Now, if I am not mistaken, I have added here JSTL API, but not the servlet API and JS. Okay, servlet API is there here. Somehow it says that it's not found, probably. But anyway, we have to add a Tomcat to this. Anyway, we're going to run this on Tomcat, right? So how do I add this to the Tomcat? Or how can I add Tomcat libraries to my project? You can go to the project properties, right click project properties, go to the Java build path here, and note that there is a no Tomcat library here. You can click on add library. From there you can add. How do I do that? Go to the add library, server runtime, and then we have this Apache Tomcat 9. That's one way to add. Second is to, anyway, I'll do this here. The second is to go to the targeted runtime and then choose Apache Tomcat. And that also would have done the job. So I'll say apply and close. Hopefully that error is gone from 404 JSP in a minute. So that's okay. I think it will go away. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The header and footer is missing. That's what is the message. So what I'll do is just for the sake of clarity, we will do that once again. Okay. So as you can see that I'm using here header and footer JSP. I am not having that. That's why it's giving an error. For the time being, I'm simply going to add header and footer without any content in it. And then I'll add some content over there. So there's going to be header.jsp, footer.jsp, one more I'll add is the index.jsp, so I can visit that home page. So I create a new home page here, new file, index.jsp, or I can say new JSP because I can get the complete JSP code. Name is index. It comes with something, so let's call it as MVC demo app or MVC demo. Bootstrap we need to add, so I'll type here link, rel equals to style sheet, type equals to text slash CSS, href equals to assets slash CSS slash bootstrap dot min dot CSS, and that should be okay. We'll also add one we can copy a lot of things like navbar and stuff like that. I'm just going to add here a div class equals to alert. Let's say we're going to use a different color scheme. So I can say warning, and that's going to be usually orange, but this can be a little bit different. I'll say div class equals to container. This is to give a fixed width. Okay. Container will have some around 1100 pixel fixed width. So anything that you give inside that will be having a margin. So I'll type your h1 MVC demo as a this one, and then I'll say p. I can use some kind of class from Bootstrap called lead. It will be a little bit bigger than a regular text. That's what. And I'll type here developed by. I'll give my name. You give yours. So that's my index.jsp where initially I should have some login, etc. Okay. So, but this will not come if you run this on Tomcat. It's not going to come. Any idea why? It's inside the WebINF. So WebINF is hidden from the user. So if I right click on this file, run as on server. First time I'll choose this. Always use this server. I don't want the previous projects to be running, so I can say remove all other projects. Finish. Yes. This will come back with a 404 because WebINF is something that is hidden, right? And if I think that it's an index page, it should come if I visit this page. That also will not come because when you send the request to the root of your project, Tomcat will look for some files like this. It looks for index.html, index.htm, index.jsp, everything inside this web app folder. But we have it in WebINF JSP folder. So I'm going to go change this to /webinf JSP index.jsp. Now this is how we tell Tomcat that hey, whenever somebody is coming to the root of your page, go to this particular index.jsp. So now I believe Tomcat has updated. It's not, it should be. When I refresh here now, okay, I think Tomcat is not restarted. So let's do a restart manually. Sometime it happens. And I'm also recording, so it takes some, it affects. So it is done. Now if I refresh, I should see the MVC demo with that orange color, because it is a warning is what I've given. Somewhere, let's say I want to also provide here a login and logout kind of stuff, right? So login register. So I'll go to this index.jsp. Right below this, this paragraph, I'll add one more div. Class equals to container. And here I'll type probably a paragraph with two links in it. Ahref equals to /, that's going to be home. Then a pipe symbol, ahref equals to /login. Let's type here login, and ahref equals to /register. I'll type here register for new users. If I refresh, hopefully I should see 3 links also here. Now this is where when I click on this, it should take me to a registration form, and that registration form will come here. Submit the details. It should be added to the database. Remember, I don't have anything, no database table, nothing, right? I should create everything from the scratch. Now this part is going to be my header, and everything else below this is going to be a footer. That's what I want to do. Now you can also add an actual footer saying copyrights, all rights reserved by, say, my website, etc. I can add here. Div class equals to text center. This is actually going to align them in the middle. How do you write a copyright symbol? Any idea? Ampersand copy semicolon. That will give you a small circle with a C in it. Copyright symbol. 2019-20. All rights reserved by let's say Vinod Inc. or K Vinod Inc. And I'll give my website name here. Ahref equals to https vinod.co and /a afterwards, like this. Let's hope this is going to be okay. That copyright is going to come right here, right? You can see that I got a small copyright symbol here. Then I got this hyperlink. clicking on which it will take me to my website. Of course, this should go down. You can always add some dummy div here, div, and say style equals to minimum height, right? So around 300 or 300, 400 pixel, then slash div, so that there is a minimum gap of 400 pixel in it. So if I refresh here now, you should see that the copyright went right below there, right? It's nice. Of course, if I have some content, it's fine, but if it exceeds, footer will go down. That's how it's going to go, minimum height. So now this is done. Now this part is going to be my header. So I'll cut from here, put that in the header JSP, and I cut the remaining part, put that in the footer JSP, save all of them, and in index, what are we going to do? We're going to say here %@ include file equals to ./header.jsp and copy paste, and this is going to be footer, right? And now again, if I refresh, it should still be the same thing. We haven't done the 404 yet, so I go to the web.xml and add a 404 page. How do I do that? Type error page, error code is 404, location is /webinf JSP 404.jsp. And now in the 404 JSP, I have the header and footer. There shouldn't be any problem. So if I, of course, if I make some changes to webinf content, I should restart Tomcat preferably. And once it's done, if I access anything that doesn't exist, I should see that 404 page. May not be very nice looking, but you can see it's supposed to give me that 404 with the header footer intact. And you see that the footer is still there. But if this exceeds more than 400 pixel, then footer will go down because we gave only min height, not max. Alright, so that's okay now. Next, if you look at this header.jsp, we have a header that says that when you click on this, it's going to take you to /register. Okay, here is where you have to tell me what is that register, what is that supposed to be. It is supposed to be the URL pattern that we give it in the servlet annotation. So what I'll do is I'll create a servlet. Now this is where MVC is important. So I'm going to right click on the project, new Java class. I can as well go with a servlet, but you must have encountered or experienced that it will add an entry in the web.xml also. And then you went and did the @web servlet. That causes a problem because you cannot give the same URL to two mappings. Okay, one servlet can have two URLs, but one URL cannot be given to two servlets. So that's why I generally go with a new class, and then I type the package name. The package name going to be com.slksoft.web.controllers. That's the convention. Should I always have like this? No. If I go to a different company, I'll give a different company name, but I still would like to give web.controllers as the part of the package because that's what I would like to name it as. It's just like how you would name this as a training room, you name that as another workshop room or something like that. There is a room which is a server's room, there's a room, courier room. So everything has a security room, you know. So we give a name and the name. Now what if I type here ASDF? It is okay, it still works, but I won't understand what is ASDF, isn't it? But I know that web.controllers means everything that you have written is a controller there. That's why we write like this. And the name here, because this is meant for register, I can type here register servlet or register new user servlet. Feel free to change them, okay? It also extends HTTP servlet. HTTP servlet. I'll say finish. Now we need to add that annotation here. @web servlet and /register. That's the name. You have to start with a slash, or you can use a star dot something also. You can give slash or star, one of them. And this is having a warning. I'll avoid the warning by adding this, the serial version UID. I pressed Control+1 enter. Okay, that added that. I'll also override do get. This do get should return or respond with a HTML form for registering new users, right? Whereas do post is supposed to, okay, this is supposed to handle form submission for new user registration. Okay, so do get will actually give the HTML form. When you submit that, it will come back to the do post. So that means when you click on the hyperlink here in the header, you're going to click on the hyperlink. Hyperlinks are always going to be a get request. That register is mapped to this particular servlet. There it will always come over here. The outcome of this would be a HTML form. That's what I want to do. How do I do that? Quickly. Request dispatcher. In this case, it's called REQ. Dot get request dispatcher slash webinf slash JSP slash, let's call it as register.jsp, and I'll say dot forward request request and response. That's the two variables that are coming here in the form of parameters. I have to pass it the same thing. That's all I have to do here, nothing else. So I don't have this JSP now. I need to go to the JSP. So quickly I copy this name, right click on JSP. I'll say new, again I'll say file, register.jsp, and here the only thing that I'll start by doing is this one, right? Header footer, and I'll probably add here h3 new users register here, right? That's what I would like to have. Now if I restart the server, so server has been started. If I go here, click on home, no problem, it takes me there. Login will be a 404 anyways because we don't have the slash login, but slash register will take me to new users register here. Done, right? But as soon as I have an HTML form here and click on that, it goes to the do post. Why? Because in the form, I would have mentioned method equals to post. That's the reason why it will go there. Okay, otherwise it won't. So now let's say I want to have this simulation. I want to have full name. This is going to be gender, male, female kind of stuff. The email, phone, password, only one time, not two times, because in the DB I need only one time, right? Not multiple. So I'm going to come up with a table here. So what I'll do is I'll just create one here only. I will create one new file. I can say new SQL file, but I'll say new file called, let's say dbscript.sql. And it will open in an SQL editor. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to go create here one simple create table command. So text editor, let's type here use training DB in not training DB. What's called SLK training. In case if the DB has been changed, I'm going to switch to that. Drop table if exists. Let's call it as users. And then I say create table users. There is supposed to be an ID, int, primary key, auto increment. So that I don't have to worry about incrementing it myself. I want to have the name of the user. I'll call it as name instead of full name. Varchar 50 is okay, not null. Then I'll say email, varchar, let's give maximum. And I'll say here not null, it's mandatory. I'll also say it is supposed to be unique, so that second time if the user is registered, it said, hey, it's not possible. Then I'll say here, was there a phone number? Yeah, so let's say here phone, varchar of 50 is okay, not null and unique. Then we want the password. I'm assuming the email going to be the username. Okay, I'll assume that. In my website, phone number is the username, okay. For some reason I thought of like that, I didn't bother to change later. Now password, I'm going to store varchar 255. Generally we don't store the password as is. We would like to store it with a kind of an encrypted way. So you don't decrypt that. And what I have done in my website is MD5 format. Now, MD5 is an encoding or encrypting format which cannot be decrypted. It's a one-way password encoding. So, but it is a kind of hackable. So people use different mechanisms. Okay, we will talk about that some other day. Right now, because your hashed passwords will be bigger lengthy text, so I'm just taking 255, which is the maximum. More than that, if you want, you'll have to give something called text. That's like blob, but only for text data. And this is not null, you have to have the password. Other than that, we will also generally give created and modified, so that we will know when was the user created. So we can say here created at, usually it's going to be a date time, and it is going to be auto generated, so we don't have to really do much. And let's say we save this. I'm going to copy the file name. I go to MySQL, -u root -p welcome #123, and then I can type here source this, and that's going to run the SQL, creates the table, no problem there. Show tables, I have the product, customers, etc. along with the users. Describe users, I have this structure. Everything is fine now. Okay. So now what we have to do, we want to represent this in Java. That is a table. How do I represent that in a Java? So we create a class. So an object of that class would represent one record. So this is where entity class come into picture. Okay. Entity class is nothing but a Java representation of your database table or database record. So we generally have the exact same thing. I don't need created it, but I can still have it. Note that there is an underscore here, whereas when we write in Java, we will use capital A. So important, okay? Because otherwise your SonarQube will give you a code smell saying that underscore is not allowed. You remember I showed you on that time capital letter, small letter only. So let's go here and create one new Java class called user. New class under entity. Instead of entity, you can name it as model, or sometimes people also use domain as the name. So I'll say SLK of entity, I'll call it as user, simple Pojo. I've also used Lombok in my pom.xml, so I can always say here @getter, @setter, @toString, @no_org constructor. All of them are added. Guess it's fine. Let's add some private variables here. Private integer ID, private string name, private string email, phone. Did I say gender? Oh, I forgot to add that, so it's okay, right? We can always add it again. How do I add that? I go to my SQL file. So open with text editor. I'll just add one more column here for this, saying that gender varchar of say 10, not null, default to male, female, whatever you want. Now I can just go back here, run this, and you see, updated, right? Simple. Now I have gender also along with that. As simple as that. Because I'm dropping the table, right? So that's why it didn't have a problem. Okay. So let's come back here, add this gender. So private string gender, private, what else is remaining? Password. String password, and private date from java.util. Then I'll say here that created at, like this. So that's going to be my model. That's it, nothing else. Okay. So instead of using Lombok, you can add the constructor getter setter manually, which we don't want. This is so simple now, right? All right. So now this is there. I want to have some kind of DAO so that my batties can go and get the data. So this is where we create a DAO, because CRUD operations. So I'm going to right click here, new interface, right? So the new interface is going to be not under entity, it's DAO. You can also call this as repository. These are two exchangeable names, either DAO or repository. And I'll stick with DAO. And I'm going to call it as user DAO or users DAO, your choice. I'll give it as users DAO because everywhere else I've done like products DAO, customers DAO. I'm going to follow the same conventions. Your choice. There is no hard and fast rule there. Okay. Here I'm going to add generally CRUD operations and queries. And right now I want to write public void add new user, and there'll be a user object given, right? This is a function. User is from my own entity. I have to import. Get is not really required right now. I just want to say here @insert, right? @insert, and then type here insert into users, and I don't need to supply ID, so I'll have to supply name, email, phone, gender.
No, not
Should I give password? Yeah, password of course I have to give. Then created underscore at, right? Anything I'm missing here? That's all right. Values, right? Values I should say here, hash name, hash email, hash phone. Sequence should be same. So hash gender, hash password, yes, and hash created a capital at, because that's what is there in the object. Whereas this is the column value, so it has to be underscore. Whereas this is coming from the model object, that entity class. Okay. So I hope this is fine. I'm not missing anything also. So what if I want this to be MD5? I'll have to say MD5 and save this like this. So MD5 is a built-in MySQL function. For example, I can say here, select MD5 of Vinod Kumar, and note that it's going to show you that's the MD5 hash. So this is, if Vinod Kumar is the password, this would be my actual password. Now online, actually you can decrypt this because they would have maintained a huge database of all possible, passwords that have been used so far. So people have all those. Okay, there are a lot of hacking mechanisms are there. So you should use complex passwords. When you use complex passwords, then MD5 cannot be decrypted. So don't use simple things like welcome hash123 okay? Or password secret, top secret, big secret. Don't use those kind of stuff. Okay.
So what if I want to have the constraints prior to the password? Like it should start with a capital.
That is all going to be in your service class, not here. That's where the service comes into picture, because service does the business logic. So you will check everything there in that, not even in the controller. Controller will simply give it a service. Service will validate whether the user is valid or not. If it is invalid, it will redirect by throwing an exception. And controller, because there was an exception, will go back to the registration page again. That's how it should be. We will try to implement as we go forward, maybe on Monday or so. So this is one model function that I've got. Now, in the registration servlet, this is where we receive the text box values. Assume that you have the text boxes. I don't have right now, but assume that I have all the text boxes there. I have to receive those parameters first. Again, remember 4 aspects, right? 4 responsibilities. Number 1 is what? Read the inputs. Read inputs. And this is where I'll say user u equals to new user, and user is from my own class, and then I type u dot set name, req dot get parameter of name, and the same way u dot set email, req dot get parameter of email. This is the boring part, right? So phone, req dot get parameter of phone, u dot set password of req dot get parameter of password, u dot set anything else? Gender. So gender, req dot get parameter of gender, and u dot set created at new date. That's it. So new date. It's the java.util.constructor, date constructor. That's going to be your date. So we got the read the parameters, right? So second responsibility. So call model method. So let me stop this. Method to save model data. So what do we do here? U is the model data. I need the service. Note that I can straight away call the DAO here. But generally, I told you on the other day also, between the controller and the DAO, there will be a service layer. Many of the occasions, service layer is just a facilitator. They don't do anything. Many of the occasion, right? But some places there, like you said, when I register, the business logic has to validate the user. So you don't do that in the DAO, because DAO is only about CRUD operations and queries, whereas service will take care of business logic such as validation, etc. So what I do is now I'm going to create a new service class here, new class called user service, but the package should be service. Good practice, okay? Otherwise, you can do everything in the same place. And here we would be doing something related to our MyBatis because I want to work with that. Now, here is where I am going to copy some of the code from the previous project, which is phone book. I had that service, contact service. I'm going to use this, okay. Now, if you're wondering what is that post construct, nobody asked me a question as why did you use post construct? So now I will explain that later. But as of now, it is really not required. I'll get it off that, okay. I'll get it off that. So here I'm looking at MyBatis config XML, which I don't have, by the way. So I need to get that from the previous project as well. So I'll copy MyBatis config XML, paste under resources here. So what is the use of this? That actually has information about the DB and which classes. Right now that's also wrong because here we have to say that it's not contacts DAO, it is users DAO, right? That's users DAO. So everything is fine now. So here when I call this init function, the user service get initialized where the I have this the factory. I write one function here. Tomorrow I'll add or Monday I'll add the validation part, but as of now it's a public void register new user. It takes user as an argument and should do validation of user fields will be done to be done. Okay, we'll do that later. User should be imported. Now all I have to do here is by saying try, you remember the other code, we get this SQL session. We receive an SQL session like this. And we say here DAO equals to session dot get mapper for user DAO dot class, and the DAO is a variable of users DAO. Now that I have got the user DAO, DAO dot add new user of user. So I hope this is fine because this is what we have been doing from last 3-4 days, right? So here there is absolutely no additional work done. I got from the controller, I'm giving it to the DAO. But that's not actual value. Like, think of your managers. Manager will get the project from somebody, give it to you. You give the project, they give to the customer. They don't have any value addition. But that's not true. Your manager will have a lot of other work to do related to the project. You may not see that, but there are a lot of work. Likewise, this is going to do the validation. We're going to do that on Monday, right? So at that time, you'll see that the service really adds some values, apart from making use of the DAO add new user. Otherwise, I can directly do a DAO.add new user in my controller itself. Generally, we don't do that. On the other day, I also wrote one picture. If I can see that, I don't remember. Let's see if I can get that from, where was that? SLK workspace. Yeah, so if you see this picture I had written on the other day, right? Your clients will always contact the web where there is a controller, controller talks to the service, service talks to the repository, or DAO, DAO talks to the DB. I don't know if you have referred this picture ever back again, but this on the first day itself, it was done, fourth sketch I did. So your controller is always going to talk to the service because there's going to be some business logic. One of the business logic is going to be validation of that user at this point in time, whether the user exists already or not, right? Those kind of validation we have to take care. But right now I'm not doing any such thing. We will keep it posted. So this is technically going to add some data, come back to the controller. Where's the controller? That's the register servlet, right? So second one, now I'm going to say here user service service equals to new user service. Service.init I have to call. Don't worry, why am I doing this? I'll explain that some other day, but this is going to initialize that. Earlier, I think some of you and even myself have done it in the constructor previously. If you look at the product service, I guess, let's see what is there in the product service. Product service.java, 2 places. Yeah, let's look at this. Can you see that I've done it in the constructor? But now I shifted that to the init. Again, don't worry, it could be done in the constructor as well. I didn't do that. But then I'll say here service dot register new user of the variable u. So now the second job is done. What's the third job? Store it in the scope if you have any data. I don't have anything here right now. So 3, store model data if any in some scope like request or session or typically these two, but we don't have this in this case. Fourth one is where we have to forward, or you can say dispatch to view. So either client side or server side forwarding. Now one small difference between client side and server side is that client side means it is a redirection. Okay, it actually tells the client to refresh the page, so it goes to a different page. There's a minor difference in case if you are wondering what is it. I think I'll explain that on Monday. So I'll show you that and then I'll explain that. Okay, but right now I'm going to do a client side redirection. This is done by using response.send redirect. If you have seen my other projects, I've used it already. You should be knowing this. I think Vijay should have already explained the difference between this and that, so I don't have to do that. I'll type here, let's say it should go to the login page. Okay, now I don't have a /login, right? So it's going to be again a 404. But at least we'll see a /login on the address bar after registration. So we'll keep this as it is. So now when you make a GET request, it goes and gives you the register JSP. When you submit the data and send it, it's going to come here and then store it in the DB and then redirect to the login page. This is what is the ask. Now we have to write one last thing, the JSP. We didn't do any of the text boxes, right? So this is where I'm going to go and get that from one of the JSP. Which JSP we had? Form, some contact form. I have a contact form, right? So I'll say contact form JSP. I'm just going to copy this part, only this one, and come back here, save it, /form. The hidden field is not required here in this case, and the variables that I have here, note that method post is important because it's going to post to the register URL. That's how it hits that. So this is going to be name. Let's say the second one is what? Email, right? So let's keep that as email. Autofocus is not required for this, but anyway, this is going to be email. ID is really not required. This is also not required in my case for now. And name is required as email. This is the first text box. Let's make it as the second one. And the first one, how many I need by the way? 6. Gender, okay, 1. This is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's go paste third and copy this whole thing, paste one more, so 6. And of course the last one is going to be just a button. I'm going to paste that over here, provide a button. So this is not required, this for is equal to is not required. This is going to be blank. This is going to be just a button. Button class equals to btn primary. I'll type here register. And in case if you want to cancel, you can put a cancel button. Href equals to, or button itself we can put. Href equals to /. That's going to go to the home. And then I type here cancel registration. I can also provide here class equals to btn like a link. Anyway, that is a link, but this will give you a style, little bit of style. And first one is going to be name. This is going to be name. This is also name and name. I think I can do a find and replace, right? That's what I did previously also. So the next one is going to be phone. Okay. What else we have? Password. So replace. One is called confirm password. Let's call it a C password. Sorry? No, that's not required in your DB. You just have to do that in your front end. Before submitting, you should check whether password and confirm password is correct or not. If it is not correct, then you give an error. If it's correct, it goes to the backend, and there we are only interested in the password. Okay, let's go and confirm password. I was supposed to give that. Let's type C password, and that's going to be replace find, replace find, replace find, replace find. And this was supposed to have been gender, and I need to shift it over to after the name. This is supposed to be not required. Let's give it as gender, and this is going to be gender. Or I think I have not given anything, right? It's just Mr. Miss. So I can remove this. Input type is equals to radio, and ID is not really required for this. Name is gender, but value would be either male or female, and the whole thing should be surrounded with a label. I'll tell you why. This is male, and the second one happens to be female here, and this is also going to be female. Okay, so same name, but values are different, based on which you will be able to select them. If you have not given the same name, then both the radio buttons can be selected, which is wrong. What else I need? I need to change each one of them to, this is supposed to be phone, this is going to be password, this is going to be confirm password, and that's it, I guess, right? Anything I'm missing? All right, hopefully everything is okay. Confirm password, anyway, we're not going to send it to the database or to the backend also, so I don't need this name. Okay, name is required only if you are sending it to the server. Hopefully everything is fine. Let's go and check if I can register one user. After registration, what would happen? Login, but it will give a 404 because I don't have login. So server is up. Let's go check this out. Home page, register, comes up like this. Now what if you don't want that big, right? So I wanted small like this. Very, very simple. Okay, let's do that. Notice this entire form, or including this, I'm going to cut from here, and I'm going to put here a div with the class of row. So how many columns do you see here? How many columns do you see right now? No. See this left side, there's one column blank, center.
3.
So 3. So I'm going to add here div class equals to call, and the same thing I would be doing one more time. Div class equals to call, and one more div class equals to call. So the first and last, they will be dummy, but inside this second one I'm going to paste this. Okay, so if you now check it out, if I go back and do a refresh, you should see that it shows like this now. Magic, right? So we don't have to do much. It's just the 3 columns, and the best part is if I reduce the width, you see that is also playing along with that. And you can now say, no, I wanted only 3 columns for medium device, not for small device. So what can I do for that? So this you have to make a bit of change. You can say here call MD 12, right? So 4. So this is also I'm going to say MD 4, and here also I'm going to say MD 4, which means for SM it's going to be different. And if you're not sure, you can say call SM 0. Or say 1, your choice. In fact, you don't have to give anything at all. For the second one, give call SM12, meaning I want all the 12 for small device, small and extra small, it will be like that. So I reload once, and if I start reducing now, you can see at some point in time, it's going to be full width, right? Now this, and again, if you see that, no, I don't want, you see this password and confirm password, I can't really read them properly. Again, what you can do, instead of 4, you can say, no, I want only 2 here. So 2 and 2, so which means I can give you a 6, and here I can give another 2. So 2 plus 6 plus, no, I should be giving in that case not 6, 8, right? So this is going to be 8. So total of 12, 2 plus 8 plus 2. So let's refresh, and you can see now this is how it looks like. Play around with this, make your own options. Okay. Again, let's see here. I want to register myself first. This also is not aligned properly because for this I don't need the class form control for these radio buttons. Now I think it is not updated yet. Sometime it happens, so you may have to restart and come back. Alright, so I click on register. Now you see it's next to that. Now let's say I want to register myself, Vinod Kumar K, mail. Now you see I can switch between this. If the names were different, then clicking on both of them would have selected both of them, which is wrong. I'll add here vinod@vinod.co, phone number, password, top secret. Oh, I should have made that as password box, right? I'm not doing any validation right now, but let's say when I click on register, it should register in the DB and then come back to the login page. See, watch the address bar here. It says register, but it should be changed to login. Of course, since login is not there, it should be 404. Hopefully, that's how it's going to work. And all right, that's what it is. You can see on the address bar, it is /login, and I'm in this. Now, one last thing I have to do is to verify whether I got it or not. Select star from users, and you can see that I got my data in password. Look at the password. That's MD5 password. Okay, you can't decrypt that, but I'm sure that's a very silly password. So there'll be a database consisting of that password too. Okay, so I hope you understood the concept of MVC. If you have still questions, feel free to throw those questions at me. But I will push this code to GitHub and see if you can recreate that. Don't copy paste or something, but see if you can create at your home and provide the login form so that you should be able to log in and then should go to a dashboard. Try that one. Okay. So I'm going to stop here for today. Dashboard. Suppose if you are in Gmail, like right now in my website, I go to login, right? I go to login. I type here this, and when I click on this, where am I going? Supposed to go to a dashboard. This is my dashboard, which doesn't exist, by the way. What are you supposed to do? You should create one. You got it, right? When you say login, after login, what is the process? If login is successful, you should. Now you see, in your user DAO, you will only have get user by username. You have to write that. Get the user by username and password, or by username. And then you should check that user, the login information as well as the DB information, they are correct. Then you should allow the user to go further, otherwise you should throw an exception. All these things, you're going to do it in the service, not in the DAO. DAO is purely about CRUD operations. Okay. All business logic should be done in the service. Controller simply coordinates with the service, that's all. And then the view, nothing else. And also, once that is done, provide a logout option. Each one of them is like stories. As a logged in user, I should be able to click on the logout button, so I will be taken back to the login screen. That's one story, like this. And this is how you go on building. Agile is all about that. Agile basically works on a principle called sprints. And usually a sprint is for running sprint. So a sprint is like you fast forward the development, and usually 2 weeks to 4 weeks is the sprint duration, depending on the project size, team size, and all the stuff. So right now, if I'm starting the sprint now, as a developer, a team of 5 to 7 people will decide what stories we are going to take up. So the product manager has given all the stories. Okay, he would have kept something called backlogs. All the stories will be in backlogs. I will say, okay, what are the things I can do it in one sprint? A sprint size is fixed. 4 weeks means throughout the year it is all 4 week sprint. Okay, so I will take up, hey, this story, I will work on in this sprint, current sprint. You will take some more. So eventually some 5-6 stories are taken. So for that story, all the aspects, backend, your controller, your DAO, your service, your UI, everything I have to develop. That's called full stack development. Okay. Now I have to plan accordingly. Not only writing the code, I also have to write test code. I have to write test cases for that. Performance testing. The unit testing, of course, right? Performance test by using what? JMeter, right? Then Selenium user acceptance, all of them. That's why we generally take 1 or 2 stories in the entire sprint. Okay, and I will not take, okay, I am a like you saw, in probably less than an hour, probably I created the whole thing, right? So one story is over in 1 hour. So that means I should be able to take how many? Around 6 hours is per day billing, around 6 hours productive time. That means I would have finished 6 stories in one sprint, which goes for 4 weeks. I would have finished the entire project, but that's not how it works. Because one story, I have not done the validation, for example. There are a lot of testing I have not done. So many things are included in that, okay? Because of which, in a sprint, usually 1 or 2 stories are taken, but you will ensure that that story is available for the user. So at the end of that particular sprint, we give a demo to the customer. If the demo is, then the user will sign off as in he says everything is okay. Or he may come with some kind of defects. He says, hey, you missed something over there. That's a defect. He may ask for some changes. Okay. And those changes are like change requests. So you make those adoptions. And that's what is actually an agile development. Okay. So always look at one story. So tomorrow you have to write a story for login. Of course, doing this plus the login. Okay. Tomorrow and day after. Is it okay? All right.